Yeah, hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to recognize that we're conducting this meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Hoopa-Chesed and Taisha First Nations, and we're grateful for that fact. I notice attendees and delegates, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube on the Regional District website. Attendees can register to watch on Zoom. Questions can be emailed to acrd@responses@acrd.bc.ca. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the meeting. Because we're conducting our business in a hybrid format, I'll go on the table here first and then introduce all those online. So I will start my right now.
Good afternoon, Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services.
Good afternoon, Akama Penny Cote. I'm the Sprout Lake Electoral Area Director.
Good afternoon, Amy Anaka, Planner, the ACRD.
Good afternoon, Amy Needham, Sustainability Planner for the ACRD.
Hi there, Alex Dyer, Planning Manager of the ACRD.
Good afternoon, Mike Hurd, General Manager of Planning and Development.
Thank you, Director Roth.
Good afternoon, Susan Roth for Beaver Creek Electoral Area.
Director Beckett.
Good afternoon, Bob Beckett, Director, Area A, Banfield.
Thank you. Director Boyko.
Good afternoon, Fred Boyko, Electoral Area Director for Beaufort.
Thank you. And I see Jenny Hildebrand, is that correct? Go ahead.
Yeah, Jenna Hildebrand with Macola Development Services and here to present on the ACRD Interim Housing Needs Report update.
Thank you. And Andrew.
Hi, Andrew Scanlon-Dickey, work for Turner Drinking Partners, partnering with Macola, and here to present the housing needs interim update.
Okay, thank you. And I am Mike Sparrow. I'm Electoral Area Cherry Creek, and I am your chair for today. So the next item up here is approval of agenda. Do we have any additions from directors? The adoption. You know, move the agenda. Okay. We'll move the agenda. Do we have a seconder for moving the agenda? Director Beckett. All those in favor? All opposed? And that's carried. We have no declaration, right? Conflicts of interest. Any conflicts of interest? Seeing none. Move on to minutes. The Electoral Area Directors Committee minutes held September 24th, 2024. Is there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I call for adoption of the minutes? Director Beckett, seconded by Director Cote. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Petitions, delegations, presentations. We do not have any, do we? Housing needs not it. Oh. Okay, correspondence for action. None. Request for decisions. None. Sorry, A, that's 7A. Request for decision, Amy Anacker, Planner 2, interim housing needs reports.
Thank you. So we do have a presentation. I'll introduce it here. So the first item on the agenda is a report on the interim housing needs reports, which Jenna and Andrew have already spoken to. So they are the project consulting team, and I'll pass things over to them in a minute, but they will walk us through a presentation essentially to support the staff report, which is in the agenda. Before I pass things over to Jenna, I just wanted to briefly summarize this report. So essentially it's to update the committee on the interim housing needs reports. So these reports are currently underway and they are legislatively required to be completed for each electoral area by January 1st, 2025. And so the project team will walk us through how this legislatively required work will get done, as well as next steps for the housing needs report work in 2025. So I will pass things over to Jenna now.
Great. Thanks, Amy. I'll just share my screen. Just checking in to make sure everybody can see that okay. Awesome. Great. So yeah, thanks so much for allowing us to have some time on your agenda today. I know all these meetings are usually stacked, so we really appreciate having the opportunity. And as I mentioned, we will be speaking to the ACRD interim housing needs reports and speaking on just sort of the requirements and a little bit of our project phased approach as well. So on our agenda, we'll just do a little brief overview of the consultant team. So Macola Development Services and Turner Drake. We'll do the project overview, talk about the interim report requirement projections. Andrew will speak to that, and then have some opportunity for questions and discussion at the end. So to begin, I work for Macola Development Services. We're a professional consulting firm that includes planners, development consultants, project managers, and just folks who are working in the nonprofit housing sector. We have over 30 years of experience in both market and non-market housing development. We have partnerships with all levels of government, nonprofit organizations, Indigenous communities, as well as the private industry. And we are governed by an Indigenous board of directors, which is really important for our organization as we have a focus on researching, developing and operating housing for Indigenous families and elders. We work across different demographics, but definitely have a focus on working with urban Indigenous organizations and nations across BC. And we're really grateful to do this work across many different traditional territories in BC. And today I'm grateful to be joining from the traditional unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations here in our Vancouver office. And I'll pass it over to Andrew.
So, as mentioned, my name is Andrew Scanlon-Dickey. I am the manager of our planning division here at Turner Drake and Partners. Turner Drake is first and foremost a real estate consulting firm. But the bulk of our work is in property appraisal and property tax, but we have a planning division for urban planning, which mostly works at the intersection of economics and planning. So a lot of our work focuses on demographic and market analysis, and we've done work for municipal, regional, and provincial governments. We've been partnering with Macola for several years now on these housing needs reports, and are thankful to be working with them again and to be working with the ACRD. I am reaching you from Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. All right, now we'll go over a little bit of the project overview. What exactly are the interim housing needs reports? So for a little bit of background, as of June 2024, so quite recently, the province updated their legislative requirements for housing needs reports. This includes requiring all local governments to complete an interim housing needs report by January 1st, 2025. So that's kind of the first goalpost that we're working towards with these interim reports. There are some new reporting requirements as part of this legislative requirement, and that now we have to report on the number of housing units that are required to meet current and anticipated need for the next 5 and 20 years. So these are new projection points, especially that 20-year projection. We need to include a statement about the need for housing in close proximity to transportation infrastructure that supports walking, cycling, public transit, or other alternative forms of transportation. This, again, is a new statement that wasn't required in previous reports. And we also have to include a description of the actions taken by local government since receiving the most recent needs report. So a little bit of a look back of what work has been completed since the previous report. In this case, it will be the 2021 report. So for our kind of main project goals, kind of 3 pieces, meeting those new provincial requirements. So again, building on the previous housing needs report, looking at those new indicators and projections, and making sure that we're incorporating all of the January 2024 provincial legislation updates as well. Providing recommendations on current context and population growth. So looking at assessing some of those housing gaps that come through the data and through the engagement process, looking at identifying opportunities for potential partnerships and funding to address those gaps, and then looking to review those Bill 44 requirements. So in Bill 44, just so everyone is on the same page, is the Housing Statutes Residential Development Amendment Act. So this bill aims to facilitate an increase in housing supply in communities across BC by really looking about how we can allow for more density. So it requires housing needs reports, OCPs, and zoning to be updated again to plan for those 20-year projections. So we'll be looking at ensuring that we're meeting all those requirements, reviewing OCPs for where potential changes can be made. And this work aligns quite well with the work that planning staff is already doing with those OCP updates. we'll be using the new housing needs report method for calculations, and Andrew will speak to kind of what that method is for those projections, and then looking at the policy manual to make sure that if there's any other requirements that we are meeting those through this project. So in terms of the project overview for this specific project, we're just doing the participating electoral areas. So that's areas A to F are part of this project scope. So in terms of our project approach, we are approaching this in kind of a phased approach. So by phase 1, that's July to December, we're looking at just completing the interim housing needs reports. And again, that is the one that has the date tied to it that has to be completed by January 1st, 2025. And that includes those 3 new requirements that I noted, the projections, the statement about transportation, and then the actions that have been completed to date. So deliverables for the phase 1 are those interim housing needs reports, 1 for each electoral area. In phase 2, we're proposing to do a more complete housing needs reports update. So that means meeting with, doing some more community engagement, potentially a housing survey, meeting with the APCs, building again on that 2021 report, including all the required report content, providing recommendations again on the current context and population growth, and then looking at those Bill 44 requirements. So out of phase 2, we're anticipating the deliverables to be the comprehensive housing data analysis, the engagement summary report, a regional summary report, and then an electoral area summary report. And again, it really is just the interim housing needs reports that have to be done. That's the legislative requirement. But knowing that your planning staff, knowing that you're doing your OCP updates is kind of suggesting to go above and beyond and to really plan with the new data in mind and the new data to guide kind of the planning process with the OCPs. And again, just a kind of brief high-level timeline. We've already completed work from July to October, and that's been kind of the project initiation, doing some initial work on the data from existing databases, completing the housing needs calculations, working with staff to fill in some of those new requirements around that piece around transportation and what's been completed since the last report, and doing a minimal amount of engagement. We had a session this morning with the ACHN, and we're obviously meeting here today to talk about the project with you folks. November, we'll be completing the draft interim housing needs reports, and then December, finalizing these reports, presenting them, and ensuring that they're published on the public website. For phase 2 really is more about that engagement piece. We know with these reports that the data is just not enough. So ensuring that we're speaking to folks who are working in the sector and have kind of an on-the-ground understanding of what the housing landscape is like. So January, identifying some groups to talk with and finalize that engagement plan. February, March, really about getting those materials ready and scheduling some of that engagement. And completing the activities, April preparing an engagement summary, and then May and June finalizing those reports, including the presentations as well to the board of directors. So now I'm going to pass it off to Andrew to just speak on the interim report requirement projections. This is kind of the one piece of data that is required for those interim housing needs reports. And these are the new projections that are required by legislation to be completed by January 1st, 2025.
All right. So in June 2024, so this year, the provincial government released a methodology for calculating demand for the next 5 and 20 years. The methodology itself is a prescribed methodology, so we are required to follow it and its processes. The reason being is that prior to releasing this methodology, the provincial government was receiving different approaches from different consultants, municipalities, electoral areas. And so in an effort to make sure everything was standardized, they required that this method, known as the H&R method or the Housing Needs Report method, was followed. And so the reporting requirements are a broad stroke approach. So in many ways, it doesn't fit all communities. Nevertheless, it is a great way or easy way to provide that kind of target number over the next 5 and 20 years. So generally, The standardized method supplied by the province, what it does is quantifies the current demand, and by current, we mean as of 2021, the projected demand, meaning from 2021 over the next two decades, and then particularly for municipalities adjusting or providing or applying a multiplication factor in order to increase the amount of units required in order to bring back or restore balance in local markets and improve affordability. So what does that look like for the electoral areas? So generally, across all the electoral areas, there's an anticipated need for units over the next 20 years. Specifically, by 2041, there may be a need across all of the ACRD's electoral areas of 1,228 units. As you can see, a good portion of that by 2026, so 519 units would be required by 2026. It's important to recognize that the provincial government puts much more weight on that 20-year projection. It's much more relied upon for long-range planning, for your OCP process, et cetera, whereas that 5-year number is more so related to the previous iterations of the housing needs assessments, which required the 5-year projections and not the 20-year. So it's more of a legacy item. So if you're looking at that and being, 519, or maybe that's too much, not enough, just recognize that the 1,228 is of greater importance. And I believe that's it.
Well, thank you for your report. That was a lot of information real quick. So we have two directors have questions. I have Director Beckett first, and then I have Director Boyko after that.
Thank you, Jenny and Andrew, for your presentation. I'm going to direct this to Andrew, as it was your slide that I saw. So for Bamfield, I'm the Area A director for Bamfield. I see 19 units for by 2026. What is a unit? So let's start with that, and then I have a follow-up question, please.
That is a great question. So based off of the inputs that go into the calculations for the provincial methodology, a unit would be described as a dwelling that's occupied by a resident who lives within a community more than half the year. So it is their primary place of residence.
Okay, so then the second question is, I find 19 to be really, really, really shy. I would suggest that the Bamfield Marine Sciences Center could use maybe double that just for their permanent staff that are working there. I'm a landlord in Bamfield, and I've got someone moving out, and I don't advertise, and yet my email and my phone is ringing off the hook with people looking, and not seasonal. This is year round. So can you just respond back to the accuracy associated with that? And did Bamfield Marine Sciences Center, just as the major employer outside of Hawaiian, did they participate in this evaluation? And thank you again for your time today.
That is a great question and I guess a great point, and very much correct. So as I mentioned, it is a prescribed methodology from the province. So for them to prescribe the methodology, they had to build it in a way that could be done for each community. And what that means is tying it to data sources that are publicly available and are equally available for each of these communities. What that means is that because it's such a broad stroke approach, that some communities, it's going to be, as you've mentioned, quite far off the mark. So while this is required as part of the interim H&R submission, the objective of the next phase is to receive comments like your own and then ground truth the data for the next or for phase 2. And so as part of the reporting, while we will be required to have that target, Which I will say it's more so of a minimum target. You're more than welcome to push for greater than that, and the province would never disagree with that, from what I understand. So the intent is, as part of the reports themselves, to create more discussion and recognize that while it's a broad stroke approach, it might not reflect the reality, and why might not it reflect the reality.
Okay, thank you for that. I have, Mike Berg, would you like to say something? Thank you.
Andrew covered it off. I just wanted to just talk about the importance of the next phase to address, sort of the smaller communities like Bamfield, where we have a lot of non-resident property owners and the impacts they would have on housing. Thanks.
Thank you. I got one real quick question. So if a unit is an apartment block, would be like 10 units or 1 unit? Real quick.
So if it's in a apartment block or apartment building that has 10 units, then it would, well, let's say it's 10 apartments, that would be quantified as 10 units.
Thank you for that. I have Director Boyko and then Director Ron.
Thank you very much, Chair. My experience is with looking at the numbers is on the opposite side of what Banfield is. I think it's overly optimistic. But I have two questions. What did you use for buffer demand percentage? And second question, what are you using for percent population increase per year? Thank you.
That is a great question. So I'll address the multiplying factor first. So there is no like multiplier for electoral areas. So the BC government, they're the ones who provide the multipliers. And so if you are a municipality, then you have a multiplier attached or incorporated within your calculations. So for Bamfield, Long Beach, etc., there would be no adjustment made. The reason for this is that the province recognizes, as municipalities have more so municipal services, amenities, and whatnot, they're trying to direct most of that demand to those areas. For the population growth, the calculations themselves for electoral areas specifically, they allocate regional growth to the electoral area. So even if there's an anticipation locally, let's say you've done your own population projections and there's a potential increase of 25% over the next 2 decades, yet the province anticipates that the regional district will grow by 10%, the 10% will be applied instead. So that's part of their internal calculations.
So if the province is dictating what the buffer percentage is and a percent increase, what are they for the electoral areas that for the 6 that we have? Because it wasn't showing your presentation. I just want to make sure everyone knows what the numbers are.
Yeah, so that's, let's see if I can find that readily here. So that's a, let's see, I think I have it open. So for the regional growth for the next 2 decades, it's anticipated to be 20%. So you'd be looking at, and that's for households, so it's household growth. So you're looking at then 20% household growth then applied to Bamfield, Long Beach, etc. And then in addition to that, so population growth or household growth isn't the only component. There are other elements in there as well. In total, there are 6 components or 6 inputs that go into the calculations, one of which is household growth that we're talking about now, and the other is the demand adjustment or that multiplier, which isn't a factor within the electoral areas.
So basically, we're just taking how many houses we have right now, multiplying by 20% over 20 years, and then over 5 years, it's 5%, right?
Roughly, yes, with some additional elements added in there.
That seems pretty straightforward. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And now Director Roth.
Hi, thank you. I cover Beaver Creek with electoral area E. So I'm just kind of rationalizing everything. Beaver Creek is surrounded by other electoral areas and a municipality. So that means that we can't expand outwards. We have to increase density or have higher density. For Beaver Creek, that means more subdivisions or subdivisions of property and smaller parcels of land. Now, I'm just wondering, is it possible to look at land that could be removed from the agricultural land reserve? Land that's not good farmland or good growing land? Like there's some land that is full of rocks and it's not great land for growing things. Or perhaps too small to make it worthwhile. So perhaps we could look at agricultural land on properties that are 5 acres or less and move them into the residential type of zoning? I don't know. Is that something that you could look at?
So I'm not sure if that's something that Amy wants to respond to, not to throw her into the mix. So our, I guess, function as part of this report update is more so looking at the numbers themselves, doing that assessment of policies, regulations that would come later in the process. So that would be after we've produced our reports, then staff at the ACRD would take it and then make, I guess, decisions or analyze certain kind of like, what am I looking, scenarios that might be useful in addressing the need that's identified. That said, I'm not as familiar with the ALRs and what can and cannot be done in terms of undesignating them or de-designating them. So
Yeah, because the way I mean, going forward, it looks like we're going to lose our appeal, of having the larger land sizes. And, we have growth because people want that. Well, it's going to turn the other way.
right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. And hello, Director Sadiga. And if you'd like to have a question, it's yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really good information and data, and I really appreciate the presentation and the information collected so far. The statistics, obviously that all of the unique features of each electoral area will be brought in later and considered later in what we expect for numbers for the future. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. And Andrew made reference to the data sort of considering the existing infrastructures. And of course, the existing infrastructures are going to be really hard done by to meet this increased demand. So I think Sean Anderson actually pointed this out. It'll be really important for municipalities to work cooperatively with the electoral districts and First Nations communities to make sure that we work together to build infrastructures that can create space for these needed housing developments. And again, I realize this is going to be addressed in future steps in this process, but I think it's important for us to keep that in mind as we go forward with our official community planning processes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any more questions, Director Cote?
Thank you. Unfortunately, I don't have the actual plan that was developed. So you've shown, can we get a copy of the report with all the numbers, because I don't have it?
Would you like to see the projections? I can pull them back up if that's helpful.
Sure, that would be great.
Yeah, 1 second.
So says Sprout Lake, in 5 years, we should have 125 new units. That's a lot of units. And as was identified earlier, there's not a lot of land that's available. I guess there's quite a bit of crown land, but all of the properties, private land is mostly built on at Sprout Lake. So, and then there's ALR land. So it'd be good to see a breakdown as to where these units could actually go in an area if we're proposing that there should be this many units. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think Andrew alluded to it, that 5-year number is really kind of a legacy that had to be included. The province is, I think, more focused on the 20-year projection and the long-range planning. And I think once this report will feed into the work that's happening with your OCP updates and zoning bylaws. And that's sort of where where that piece comes in about actually connecting the units to how and where in the community.
Yeah, I just follow up on what Jenna was saying. It really comes down to the discussions around the housing components of all of the OCPs, and how these targets can be achieved. You know, whether it's, you know, we've made some recent changes around that were required around allowing secondary suites on all residential properties. But when we did the engagement last fall, there was a lot, every area, you know, the feedback was they wanted to look at options for housing. And I think those will be some important discussions to have with the communities in each electoral area on what that should look like, whether it's, you know, working with ALR on marginal land, or looking at different ways of you know, providing housing, and still maintaining that rural character. I think that's going to be the you know, the challenge as we go forward.
Thank you. So could RVs be considered a unit? People are becoming less bricks and mortar and more mobile in nature in a lot of cases, where they move around. You see a lot of RV parks, especially south of the border, where people will spend 6 months there. Sprout Lake is a recreational residential area, so I'm wondering if that could be included. A lot of the campgrounds, RV parks, whatever, are not affordable to maintain anymore, and I'm just wondering if that would be something that we would start looking at to try and incorporate options for different kinds of housing like that. I've also asked that in our OCP review that we start to identify what recreational lot actually is, what it could support. Thank you.
I expect that's going to be part of the discussion as we go out to each of the areas around the OCPs. We've talked about it. The board's talked about aspects of that. We certainly have people in our communities that are asking about that. So that's something that will be included in the OCPs, and I think that feedback is going to come from the community. And then just how that you know, proceeds, or the best way to do that.
Thank you. So there's places like Tall Timbers that are RV or campground. And I'm not sure if if they can stay there for 50% of the time, or if it's more, or if it's less. So I'm just looking at those units as, could they be considered? I don't know if it is 50%. I don't think anybody's there through the winter besides.
The zoning doesn't restrict it, but I don't think RVs aren't calculated in the housing needs projections. Like that's not included, and it's still a topic for discussion in OCPs about how you know, how the ACRD moves forward with that. But for the housing needs projections, for housing and housing units, recreational vehicles are not included in part of that.
Thank you. I have one question, not recreational vehicles, but if you had a recreational lot where, like on vacation lots, we have 6 months, are they considered to be a unit? And I'm asking both Mike and Andrew.
I can take that to start. So the main distinguishing factor for the housing need projections is whether it's occupied as a permanent use or as the primary place of residence. So that's the main distinguishing point that the province wants to see, is that we're providing housing that is permanent. So if it's a recreational lot that's being used less than half of the year and purely for that recreational use, then that wouldn't count as a unit. However, if that recreational use converted to a more full-time permanent residential use, then that would be considered a unit.
one more question. So if a person lived on, say, Sproul Lake for 4 months of the year, rented out for 8 months of the year, that would be considered a unit?
If it is, that's a great question. In that case, if it was, ooh, that's a really difficult question because technically that would be deemed as a rental property. And based off the definitions from StatCan, that would be the folks who live in that rental property would be considered to be usual residents. So it's their primary place of residence. So based off that definition and the inputs that go into the calculations, yes, technically that would be considered as a unit. Even if it's it kind of blurs the lines of of what is true, but technically by the word of the inputs that go into the projections, it would be classified as a unit, yes. Whether you want to classify it as such, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. I'll give it to.
Oh, and I was gonna say, I think that's where the next phase of the housing needs assessments as well as the OCP work is going to come into play and be important, you know, especially for the makeup of the 6 electoral areas that we have, and just you know how to build out around that. And I think I mean, these are some really good questions, and we don't have all of the answers for them. But those are some things that are going to need to be fed, you know, and dealt with through the OCP process. And then that's where the future land use decisions come in on how things should look and where they should go, and still maintaining the rural nature that Director Roth was talking about earlier. I think, you know, that's how does this all fit together, and how do we build over 1,200 units, you know, in less than 20 years. So.
Okay, thank you. And I have Director Boyko, and I thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chair. I got 2 questions. Where did you guys get the number of units from? Was that provided by StatsCan or was it provided by staff for the electoral areas?
Number of units meaning the projected units?
If you multiplied stuff by 20%, what did you multiply by 20%?
Oh,
like,
so
how many units exist in 2021?
Right. So the numbers that would be used as part of the calculations, so all of the inputs are referenced, or we were provided sources by the BC government, which includes a custom purchased Statistics Canada data set, which is based off of census profile data. So the number that would be multiplied by that 20%. Again, that's only one of the components that go into the calculation, but the number would be the total number of households that live within a community. And a household would be made up of folks who live there permanently or where it's their primary place of residence. So it wouldn't consider recreational properties or folks who are living, let's say, during the summertime sort of thing.
So it's a custom data set based on the survey data from 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So, okay. So if we're using that, that's good. Second question is, and this is not really a question for the consultants, more a question for the staff. Has the board voted on extending this into the future for the next phase of the housing needs assessment? Or is this going to be a financial deliberation coming up in early next year to go above and beyond what is actually required by the BC government?
That would, I recognize that. Yeah, that would be included in the 2025 budget deliberations.
Okay, so that's still coming up with expected costs and that kind of stuff that we will talk about in a couple months.
And I would flag at this point for all the directors' information that the province provided funding that was specific to housing related changes and housing needs reports, and that's where this funding is coming from.
But will the expanded report over the next couple of years, I assume, be paid for already? Or is that going to come out of our budget that we're going to be voting on?
What we were talking about is the sort of for the next phase through the first part of 2025 would be coming out of that budget that the province provided. Future housing needs reports you know, unless there is additional funding provided by the province, would come out of ACRD funds.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr.
Thank you. Does any other directors have any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, anybody want to make, sorry, Director Ross?
I just have one small one. I'm just curious, why weren't First Nations communities included in this? Or if you even know.
I might pass that one off to the planning staff of of the decision to just do the electoral areas, or what decision making went into that.
So for doing the interim housing needs reports, these were the requirements of the province that we do for the electoral areas. So that was why it was included. And then for the next phase, it is for the OCP areas, which do not include the First Nations areas in them.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions of the director? Oh, Director Cote.
Thank you. I think that the First Nations are actually doing their own housing assessments, housing needs assessments, as I understand it. They may be melded in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from directors? Seeing none, can I get a motion to receive the interim housing report need project update? Okay, Director Cote, and seconded by Director Beckett. Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Oh, okay, all those in favor? Unopposed? Yeah. 7B. Amy and Naka, Planner 2, Community Official Plan Updates.
And thank you, Jenna and Andrew. So
Thanks, everyone.
So the next report is an update on the electoral area official community plan updates. And this really is to support the continued work to review and update those 6 OCPs. And again, in the following order. So it'll be South Long Beach, Sprout Lake, Beaver Creek, Beaufort, Bamfield, and Cherry Creek. So a hybrid consultative staff team has been hired to complete the updates to Area C and Sprout Lake OCPs. So of course, those are currently underway now. And then the plan is that the updates the remaining 4. So Beaver Creek, Beaufort, Bamfield, and Cherry Creek will be completed by planning staff. And since May 2024, the project team has been busy focusing on work on the Area C OCP update. So this has included, a number of project initiation and background research items. Some of this has included a couple of meetings with the Long Beach Advisory Planning Commission. So that was well received and some great feedback received there. Staff has also been meeting with a number of community partners. Emails and communication with First Nations has started, and things like that. The thing I wanted to highlight here is that this report includes an attachment or Appendix A, which is an Area C communications and engagement plan. And so this was developed and it was based on the OCP updates work plan and engagement strategy that was approved by the board of directors in January 2024. So it's just essentially a more complete and sort of fancier looking communications plan. And again, that's included in the agenda as Appendix A. So this plan outlines, some of the engagement strategies, the tasks, some of the activities that the ACRD will undertake, really to gather community, First Nations input around Area C OCP updates. And so, of course, it's our intention to enable, meaningful discussions, timely discussions, and really offering, engagement activities that are, targeted, inclusive, innovative, things like that. So, of course, various methods will be incorporated to reach out to these different groups and different communities. And so some suggestions have been included in the plan. Staff will pay particular attention to using different types of engagement, really tailored to each phase of the process. And this will really be guided by community members. So we're really looking for feedback on, you know, how to engage, when to engage, where to engage, and things like that. You know, feedback from agencies, and especially when it comes to engagement with First Nations, reaching out to find out and meeting with them early on to find out how they want to be engaged, when, and things like that. So also want to point out that this engagement plan really builds upon all the work that was done back in fall 2023 when we did those initial OCP visioning sessions. We went out in the community, had those great open houses that were well attended. We had a survey, so that all of that work has not been lost, and that is feeding into this work that is underway and upcoming. And really the last point is just overall guidance. So overall guidance for all of the OCP updates will largely come from the Advisory Planning Commission. So making sure we're checking in at each monthly meeting, going out into the community to meet with APC members, of course, doing updates to this committee here. And then internally, we are going to be forming a technical advisory staff group. And so that group's going to include a number of different staff from different departments, and you'll sort of get together. That would be like an internal advisory group for these projects. And of course, final or overall guidance and approvals will be from the board of directors. So we have been actually just today started advertising, which you'll see more of, for a pop-up event in Area C. So that's like the first sort of kickoff event on November 6th at the Ukiulet Co-op. So we're going to be taking a team out there and just having a little pop-up set up at the busiest time, apparently between 4 and 6 p.m. And then I can screen share, we can send out the link, but in our ACRD Let's Connect page, there is a project page dedicated to the Area COCP. So some nice discussion questions and things on there. Started some initial engagement, have people asking questions already about some specific topics. So that's been well received. So each OCP update will have its own project in Let's Connect. So that's the plan for that. And just lastly, touching on the Sprout Lake OCP. So that is, of course, next to be updated. We're already working behind the scenes on some of the background and really using the templates that have been set up for Area C. And we'll sort of officially begin the project later this month at an upcoming APC meeting. And then, like I said, we'll create the page and Let's Connect. So I think I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions.
Well, thank you for that. Are there any questions from any directors? I don't see any hands up right away. Oh, Director Boyko, there you go.
Hey, Chair. Community engagement is always tough, and getting more and more people out there is always important. There's many different ways as we can do it. Share as much stuff as we can. We're getting great engagement on our townhouses. We get over 100, 150 people sometimes. We just need to see if we can get that same kind of turnout to get excited about OCP updates, because last time we had a less staff. We had 6 people at the Beaufort one, and we had more staff than we had people. So we need to try and reverse that and engage more and get a better turnout. And I will be glad to help make that happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mike.
Oh, and just so I can, and you know, our goal and hope on this is to work with the area directors and the local advisory planning commissions on how best to do the engagement with our kickoff meeting with the Area C Advisory Planning Commission and Director Sega. We had some really good feedback and some really good ideas. So, you know, that's something we're going to carry on and look for assistance and help with each of the areas. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that. I know Cherry Creek's last on the list, which is fine, but it'd be nice to get 1 year newer or sooner than that, but it's a lot of work that goes in these things. I know that Cherry Creek came out very responsive in their first meeting about this, so hopefully we can get through this and get to what the communities all want. Yes, Director Cote.
Thank you. I've been through a couple of OCPs in my terms, and they've been very well attended, and there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of controversy or misinformation. People aren't aware of what the OCP actually directs for your community. So education is a key that I really want to identify as bringing forward, and community consultation. So getting to meet up with the community. I really like the open houses that you've had. There will be community meeting that I will be organizing for our budget, because we always like to introduce the budget to the community. And Zoom seems to be a really good way to go. Have the community meeting, but also when we've had our budget meetings through the regional district through Zoom during COVID, we had a better response. So people like to get away in the winter, and it doesn't matter what time of the year it is, somebody's gone, and they don't feel like they've been counted. So I'd like to maybe offer some coffee days, something like that, where people would, rather than having a big crowd, they just want to have some private consultation, you know, if there's a group of neighborhood or something that wants to talk about, changes that they'd like to see in the OCP for their area. I would love to be able to take them up on that. And if staff could attend, that'd be great. If not, maybe just a Zoom link or something that we could, or phone call, I could say, what about this? So that staff are right there to be able to answer any questions that the directors can't. Or the directors can give direction as to where to get the right information. But yeah, really want to make sure that consultation is carried out in the maximum way. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy?
Thanks for that. This feedback is exactly what we're looking for. I'll point out that in the engagement plan here for Area C, and we'll talk more about Sprout Lake's engagement plan when we meet with the APC, there are ideas like that in there, like OCP pizza party. We'll provide the pizza, and we create a handbook that people can come pick up at the counter and do like sort of citizen circles and things like that. So it's wonderful that you're already talking about smaller conversations with coffee, and maybe we'll have some promotional items to bring, or we'll supply the coffee or things like that. So appreciate that is the sort of direction that you're hoping for. So yes, larger scale, smaller scale, when time of year. And I'm glad you brought that up, because over the years when we've engaged with Sprout Lake, for example, we hear that often when we do a bulk mail out and it goes to their actual physical, mailboxes, a lot of people aren't there. So, ways to be able to engage with people online. We have equipment now. We could do, hybrid meetings. We can go out to the community hall, but also bring our equipment to have it hybrid. So yeah, so definitely thinking of all that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I have Director Boyd. Have a follow-up or not? Okay, thank you. No,
I got a quick question, if that's okay. Thank you, Chair. You mentioned we got our new hybrid meeting equipment. Has it been tested? Can we use it in remote facilities? Because I know we have some upcoming meetings, and I haven't heard for certain that it works and we can use it. Thank you.
So we are in the process of testing it. I don't think we've used it at a meeting yet, but we've used it in the basement here, and it works pretty well. So we're looking forward to using that and getting back in the halls specifically on some of our APC meetings as well, for example.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. I'm glad to have that purchased and ready to rock.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Cote.
Thank you. So the only way that equipment is going to work is if you have internet connection. Sprout Lake Community Hall does not have internet connection. So it's going to be difficulty. And just because we have the equipment doesn't mean that it's going to work. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I checked out Cherry Creek. They already got it. So we're good. Mike, go ahead.
And I just, as we do engagement, it's very different from public hearings. So it's okay to do engagement, one day online and one day we go out in person if there isn't internet in the community hall, and that's the appropriate spot for doing that. I think as we do the engagement for the community plans, we're going to use all of those options, and there is some opportunities to bring the video conferencing equipment out to have meetings, and again, we're always when we're running public hearings, we're always more conscious of following the process and not invalidating it. Whereas engagement is more about making sure we're reaching out to the broadest amount of people. And if people aren't able to attend, they're able to connect another way or connect the next time, and we still get that feedback. There's there's lots of opportunity for the input. So that's and we're gonna take it out to some halls where there is internet and see how it works. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any more directors have any more questions for Amy? Okay, hearing that, anybody want to make the motion? Okay, no, I say Director Sagan put her hand up. You want to make the motion? Can't hear you.
I just have to scroll down and find the motion here, sorry. Oops, I'm sorry. I would like to make the motion to, I believe this is to accept the housing needs. I can't find it now.
I'll tell you what, I'll read the motion and then you can.
And then I'll say, let's please accept the
Okay,
official community plan update.
very good. So the Electoral Area Directors Committee received the update on the official community plan updates project and endorsed that Area C, South Long Beach, official community plan update communications and engagement plan.
I move that.
So moved by Director Sega, seconded by Director Roth. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? No, carried. Now we're going to go on to a decision for a request from Mike Erg, agricultural related updates on the ACRD zoning bylaw.
There we go.
That's an information report, and I will run through a brief summary and then answer any questions anybody has. So there has been discussions at the Agriculture Development Committee about updating the zoning bylaw to allow agricultural uses, as well as updating the keeping of animals section of the zoning bylaw. When this was brought to the board, it was suggested that it be brought up at a future meeting, and an EA directors meeting is certainly, I think, the most appropriate spot to have this discussion. This report has been brought to the EA directors to review and discuss. The board made the decision to pause the zoning bylaw and to proceed with the 6 electoral area OCPs first. This will allow for more community engagement on a number of topics important to the community before proceeding with changes and rewrites to the zoning bylaw. This engagement that we're doing with the communities will include how best to move forward with agricultural policies that will then need to be included in the zoning bylaw. And Director Roth brought up, what about the fringe agricultural areas that aren't, as conducive? And I think those are some discussions to have with the Agricultural Land Commission, around that. Now, I'm not, I don't know where that would go, but I think those are, things that the community wants to do. As part of that process. And given that the OCP reviews are already underway, it's recommended that the board complete those OCPs before moving on to drafting a new zoning bylaw. And I just, I also want to highlight, and it's important to note that while the OCP projects are underway, the ACRD, through the Agriculture Development Committee and our sustainability planner, we continue to support agricultural initiatives in the ACRD, and some examples being the sustainability, the systems change project that has just been completed. There's a work on agriculture, water infrastructure, as well as food security and emergency planning, and all of these things relate back to the agricultural plan and the coastal addendum. And so it's just a brief summary of the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Director Boyko for the question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to expand a bit more details on this. So as a person from Beaufort representing the farmers and on the Agricultural Development Committee, there's many changes to the ALR from the ALC that have been implemented, and we're just waiting to make them implemented in the Alberni Valley. Some of them are small, some of them are big. And basically, if we wait for the OCP updates to go through all 6 electoral areas, which will take a couple of years, and then redo the zoning bylaw, which might take a couple more years. We're waiting, 3-4 years for these changes to actually take place. And some of them, I do not see why we cannot just make a change and allow them to happen now. For example, we're talking about food security. We all see what happened with a couple hurricanes down the south. Allowing farm gate abattoirs, that should be a no-brainer. Make that happen. Allow agricultural secondary use on residential lots, perfect. Keep livestock on smaller lots, increase food security. Allow agritourism. We're all talking about housing. This will allow additional housing in the valley. Increase lot coverage percentages for greenhouses to get more food. These kind of things. So waiting another 4 years for these to happen, 3-4 years, which is a realistic timeline of when these would actually be implemented. I don't see why we can't make a motion right now and pass these right now and put them in the zoning bylaw as a separate item rather than passing P1333, the draft zoning bylaw in entirety, which has a lot of flaws that we've already talked about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any response or? No? Go ahead.
I mean, I'll respond. I'd like to, I think it'd be appropriate for the other directors to ask their questions on this. I just would highlight that there is a significant amount of time involved in making the changes and running through the consultation and public hearing process, and that will delay, either OCP projects and or development applications.
Okay, thank you. Director Roth.
I was just wondering if Director Boyko was making a motion to that effect, and if so, I'd like to second it, because I don't see why not just move ahead if the ALC is making these changes now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Director Cote. Did you have your hand up or not? Yeah, Director Cote and then Director Boyko.
Thank you. I would really like to see these changes come to my OCP before I start. I'm not prepared to start approving these at this time. Sprout Lake is different than the Beaufort. It's we do have farmland, but it's also beside running water that people use for potable water. So having unlimited number of poultry, roosters, peacocks, etc. on residential or rural zoned lots greater than 0.6 of an acre is not going to work in my area. So, and as far as lot coverage percentages by greenhouses to 45% of the lot, what are they growing? Like I have questions that I'd like answered before I start approving this right off. I know that ALR has new things that we should be supporting, but I would like a full report before I start off the cuff making these changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. So this relates to ALR land only. And there are places where ALR land is right next to residential and is residential because this was set up in the 70s when ALR land was set up. And people have lived on it and were living on it when ALR was designated. That being said, if Sprout Lake wants to spend time in looking at it in more detail than what is already reported in this report, I don't see why not we can do that. But at the same time, can we not just apply this to Beaufort at this time and make this happen? That should be one straight, simple hearing and call it a day and move on.
Okay. I don't know if we can or not. I will ask Director Cote and then she'll get an answer back for you.
Thank you. So in the ALR land, I'm not sure if it was ALR land, but the regional district has had complaints about roosters in the past. And just wanted to, we had had looked at zoning bylaws and talked about roosters and peacocks in particular in farming areas that were very disruptive to the community around them. So Is that being taken into account here at all by just allowing this to happen in those areas? I don't know if you can take Sprout Lake away from that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Certainly, a zoning bylaw or zoning over an area of the regional district or specific to certain electoral areas or specific to certain OCP areas can be done. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of the time that would go into doing that, and the board can proceed with directing an amendment to be made, passing first reading, holding a public hearing, and adopting it. That's always the board's prerogative. Certainly, my understanding is that the board's wanting to have consultation, and that the residents or members of the public that are affected by this, by whatever zoning bylaw amendment the ACRD is making, are fully aware of the implications and impact on that. And I just, if we're moving ahead with a change or certain changes, that the board is aware of sort of all of the implications and the impact on other ongoing projects. So right now we have a full slate of long range planning projects with the OCPs, as well as very busy development applications. And that, that's on the next report. Again, this is staff will go ahead and do as directed by the board. And when we do that, so yes, we can draft it up bylaw however the board wishes it to be drafted. These whether it's amendments that some of these only apply to the ALR, some of the what's highlighted here apply to outside of ALR. The keeping of animals and farming does we can't the ACRD cannot restrict keeping of animals in the ALR. If it's farming, it's farming, and it's permitted as long as it follows good farm practice. So I think that's sort of as much information as I can provide, and if there's additional questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you for that. So I have a question. So if one area wanted to do it and want to put this bylaw through, there'll still be a public hearing, there'll still be a process, there'll still be probably months away before you got to the end of the process. Is that right?
Yeah, it would still, you still have to run through the, if it's a zoning amendment is a zoning amendment, whether, so this would be, text and potentially certain areas. So need to run through, bylaw report, advisory planning review, public input, referral agencies. I'm sort of the way this is being described. I expect a public hearing is required to do it. And then, then follow through on adoption. So yes, it will take a number of months, like any rezoning application.
Thank you. I heard a year in there somehow miraculously, but okay. I have Director Ross, Director Boyko, and then Director Sagan in that order. So Director Ross, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to add Beaver Creek to all of these bullets too. And you can see the very last one. It says in Beaver Creek and Beaufort electoral areas, unlimited number of poultry, roosters, peacocks, etc., on all residential or rural lots greater than 0.24 hectares in size. So if we just put in Beaver Creek and Beaufort electoral areas before all of those bullets, it should work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to chickens and roosters and things like that, we've been doing this for over a year in Beaufort Beaver Creek, unlimited roosters and chickens, and we've had 0 complaints. One of the rules we have is be a good neighbor, talk to your neighbors. Don't put your roosters underneath your neighbor's bedroom, or else you might wake up with no roosters. Be a good person, and we've had it working and no issues going forward. With regard to everything else here, I would definitely make a motion to make these changes, make a simple bylaw amendment, and apply this to Beaufort and Beaver Creek and carry on with their lives. If the other areas want to join in and move forward with the changes that will increase food security and help the farmers out in the area and increase housing and everything else that's involved with this, I urge them to join. If they want to take time and spend years going through it, by all means, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Director Siga.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm all for improving food security, but I'm also wondering about the costs. One of the bullets was being able to have an abattoir on each farm. Now, is ACRD responsible for inspection of these abattoirs? And if so, what would the cost be? So there is no inspection of abattoirs?
But not by the ACRD.
Okay, so who is monitoring this?
Would be the Ministry of Agriculture. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, just the cost implications I'm very aware of and would like to know the answers. Thank you.
I think on the mic.
Thank you. So as far as regulation of abattoir, small scale abattoirs, that's Island Health. So the costs and resources I was talking about is the staff time to work through and make these changes. Okay. Answers your question, Dr. Sia.
Thank you.
Then I have Director Cote, and then Director Roth, and then
Thank
Director
you.
Beckett.
Thank you. If things are working along, if people are having their animals already, I don't see that we need to put this in place right at the moment and expense our staff time. I don't believe that this is part of our strategic plan. I think we need to really look at making a concerted effort that we stick to our strategic planning, because we only have limited staff time. And as it's just been pointed out, is if we move this in, something else is going to be moving out. We're trying to get things finished by the end of the year. So I'd like to ask staff, are you getting questions about people wanting to put bigger, like 45% of a lot greenhouses? That's a big cost to keep something like that heated through the winter. So and as far as unlimited numbers of poultry and whatnot, I think that people are pretty reasonable as far as how many units of poultry or whatever that they're keeping. So I don't think that we really need to push this at this time, but that's my opinion. And I would be hoping that the directors would understand that we have limited staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Mike, you want to answer that, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to let you know where it kind of originated, the conversation, it came through an Agricultural Development Committee meeting of the committee, and it was brought forward by a local producer that had a question that wanted to be brought up to the committee. So just the possibility overall from the report, the possibility of doing agricultural related zoning changes that would have been brought forward in the draft, but then weren't. So can we just do the ag ones?
You do a follow up? Sure.
So could we push this out to 2025 and try to fit it in to our work schedule then, rather than trying to fit it in now? Thank you.
Yes, I'm gonna put this back to the committee, that this is ultimately a board decision, but it's voted on, by the Electoral Area Directors Committee, and if it's zoning bylaws, some instances to Vino. But I mean, it can, there is consequences to other projects, or there's impacts to the other things we're working on. There's one, everybody to be aware. And we're talking about changes that were included in the zoning bylaw. I'd refer the directors to page 28 of the agenda. As around the timeline. While the Ag Development Committee is asking it for it, there was the Farmers Institute also wrote a letter to the board, asking that the zoning bylaw be stopped and paused, and we go on our the path that we're on now. So again, we will follow the direction of the board. But we were on this path with the zoning bylaw. That was paused. We're moving on a path of updating the OCPs and then looking at options for the zoning bylaw. That's kind of how we got here.
Thank you for that. I have a Director Ross.
Thank you. I'd like to second Director Boyko's motion to begin with. And also, food security is a pretty big issue. And if we can help it now, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have Director Beckett.
Thank you. Good discussions. I just need to confirm, either with the chair or with staff, that these proposed changes are only on ALR land. That's my first question. I have a second question.
The way they were written in the draft zoning bylaw, some of them would only apply to ALR. There's other components that would apply to all areas or certain zones, regardless of whether they're in the those zones are on properties that are in the ALR or not. So it would cover both.
Okay, so a comment before I go to my next question. And I heard very distinctly that there isn't a problem with roosters or chickens in the area. But I can tell you that I think I lost about 72 hours of debate and discussion around the board table on that matter. So I'm a little sensitive to whether or not, that won't come back to haunt us. The second question I have is the cost associated with staff time. Is that absorbed by all electoral areas or just the electoral areas that would choose to look to have the bylaw amended for their particular area? Thank you.
That cost would come out of the rural planning service, which encompasses all the electoral areas. So yeah, so it would come out of all electoral areas.
Okay, thank you, Director Beckett. Any more questions? Is that it? That's it. Okay, Director Boyko.
My hand's still up here, Chair.
I did say Director Boyko. Sorry.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So with regard to, is this in the strategic plan? The answer is yes. Section on page 29 of the agenda. Strategic plan reads, work with regional agricultural producers towards identifying and addressing challenges faced by regulations and climate change. So it's in there. It is part of our strategic plan. Secondly, there is a Right to Farm Act in British Columbia. And the farmers and people that want to grow their own food on ALR land and other places, it's mainly for ALR, but we do not have the right as government board people to restrict the right to farm. That's legislation. So encouraging farming, which is what this does, should not be restricted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions? No. The only comment I'm going to make is if we do put this forward as a motion on the floor, that is going to slow down the OCP and other processes because there's only so many people available to so many things. And as we put more on the plate, something's going to be pushed off the plate. So if we do move forward with this, then it's going to push back other development areas. And we're not going to hire more staff, I don't believe. So things are going to slow down. That's my only comment. So any more directors have any more comments? No? Yes, I'm going to ask if the motion read. Thank you.
Okay, so the other possible motion that was drafted, and I did amend just based on the discussions, and that is that the electoral area directors recommend that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors amend draft zoning bylaw P133 3, in order to support local agriculture and remove barriers both for the keeping of animals and agritourism in electoral areas B, Beaufort, and E, Beaver Creek. Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Mike?
so I think that should just read zoning bylaw 15 if we're amending the current zoning bylaw.
Yeah, I have a question. Any other directors want to put their name towards this or just Beaver Creek and Beaufort? 'Cause I'm starting to feel like maybe Cherry Creek with their farms out there may want to be part of this too, if that's going to happen. And we have another 3 years for OCPs and bylaws get done, so I have Director Cote, then I have Director Ross.
Thank you. So this does not limit to ALR land. So that could happen anywhere in Cherry Creek if that's what you desire.
Thank you. And I have Director Ross.
I would just like a recorded vote, please. But definitely Beaver Creek. And if it would mean that Beaver Creek would just pay their portion and it doesn't include the other areas, that's fine too.
Okay, thank you for that. But yes, it's a regional wild service, so we all pay for it. So, any more questions? None. Yep, clarification from Cynthia.
Yes, so just clarifying, so am I keeping it as electoral areas B and E or others, or is it for all?
Yeah, well, at Cherry Creek, I think, because we do have farmland out there and they do butt up against Beaufort. I'm not Beaver Creek, but Beaufort. And I have Director Cote for a question.
Thank you. My question is, do we have money in the budget to do this? Thanks.
If staff allocate their time to doing this versus the other projects, which is, you know, unless we go out and hire an outside consultant, which I would recommend if that's the board's direction, if we would just come back with a report, sort of outlining what would be delayed while we do this work.
Thank you. So this would affect the Long Beach and the Sprout Lake OCP rewrites, which would in turn delay all of the rest of the OCP rewrites. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yep, it might delay things a little bit. I can't see writing this, doing a public meeting, taking an enormous amount of time. Does this need to be happen next week, next month? The answer is no. We've already, the direction from the Advisory Agricultural Planning Committee, Development Committee came in May, and now it's October. Are they expecting this to happen next month? The answer is no. Would they like this to happen in the next year? The answer is yes. Maybe we can find some time in the budget to do this in 2025 and in first half and then work towards it. And then we can manage our time, our staff levels, leave it up to our more than capable people in this room to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. So are you advising that this can be done after the budget of 2025, sometime in the summer? Is that what you suggested just now?
That would be awesome. We can allocate some staff time in the budget of next year to make this happen for these 3 areas, which is the primary agricultural areas in the valley. There is some farms in Sprout Lake and ALR land and some very large farms there as well. But if the director wants to postpone it and that's the will of our people, then that's how we shall do it.
Thank you. I have, hold on, Director Beckett and then Director Cote.
I'm more comfortable with having it as part of a board/budgetary process so that we know exactly how much time's involved, what the costs are, and that we, as Director Boyko has alluded to, is give staff some parameters to prioritize what needs to be completed, what is most important as we move forward over the next few months, and look at, and I could certainly support work getting underway in 2025. So I don't know if that helps or not, but I'm trying to make it so that I can support it.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Director Cote.
Thank you. As it's written that, there's, areas that are not in the ALR that would allow for keeping of livestock and, greenhouses up to 45% of the lot, peacocks in residential areas. I can't support that, at Sprout Lake, and I'm hesitant to actually support this in the other areas as well. Just because of as Director Beckett pointed out, we've had many hours spent discussing roosters in the regional district. So at this point, I'm really not wanting to support this. I would like more information going forward and a budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We already have roosters, peacocks, and everything else in Beaufort and Beaver Creek all over the place. They exist here. They're wild. They're all over the place. That being said, we've had 5 town halls in the past 2 years, and we've extensively discussed this in detail. And by far, over 95% of the people, the public, thoroughly support this. So our public is telling us they want this, and if a director in a different area does not want to support this in their area, perfectly fine. But please do not restrict this in the area that supports it and wants it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, if the board is discussing bringing this to the budget in 2025, I would recommend that be included in the motion, and then it gives us some time to fully address, the components. What I'm understanding from hearing the general discussion is support is support for the changes, especially around the agricultural land reserve. So there's certain components of land use that are permitted by the agricultural land reserve, but must comply with local government zoning. So in this case, the ACRD zoning, and those are the priorities. Certainly, we can either do a pick of which we did last year as far as the implications, or bring back a report for the board to consider as part of budget about how this could be accomplished and the impacts on other projects. That's something the board, the committee would like to do. And we could in that budgetary process and report and outline around what the work would be. We could differentiate between the zoning changes that would apply only to ALR versus zoning changes that would apply outside the ALR.
Thank you. I have Director Boyko and then Director Beckett.
I think what was just said by the general manager of planning is a great idea. I would like to amend the motion to include that it takes place, these final votes or the final decision goes into the budget for 2025. I know we'll have another town hall in February 2025 when budget time is going on, and we can confirm with everybody that they want to make sure that this is a priority in our areas. Perhaps the other electoral area directors can have similar discussions with their people in the next 2-3 months and carry on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have Director Beckett.
Thank you. It was a great suggestion, Mike. Director Boyko, with those changes, I would be happy to support that motion. So thank you for that concession.
Okay, thank you for that. Any more questions? No. I'm trying to stall because Cynthia's writing the motion right now. Have you got done? Okay, here we go. Sure.
I hope I captured it. So that the electoral area directors, I recommend that the Alberta Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors amend zoning bylaw number 15 in order to support local agriculture and remove barriers both for the keeping of animals and agritourism in electoral areas B Beaufort, E Beaver Creek, F Cherry Creek to be considered in the 2025 budget process.
Thank you for that. Anything from staff? No, anything from the directors? Director Cote?
So thank you. So that was an amendment to the motion that was on the floor? Okay, thanks.
So we have to make a motion to amend the original motion, correct? So we're gonna,
Not if the mover and seconder are both okay with the amendment.
okay, so we're gonna go and talk to Director Boyko as the first person, then Director Roth.
I am perfectly okay with the amendment. Thank you, Cynthia.
And I am absolutely okay with seconding the amendment.
Is there any more questions on the motion on the floor? Okay, it's a recorded vote, correct? Okay, so all those in favor of the motion? Pardon? Oh, all of them.
Oh, everyone?
Pardon? Sure.
So this is a recommendation to the board, so this will go to the board right away and be approved or not approved at the board, right? So this is just a recommendation to the board.
Yes.
Recommendation, yes, okay, recommendation to the board, okay. And all those in favor were Director Ross, Director Boyko, Director Cote, Director Beckett, Director Sparrow, Director Seaga. In that order. Okay, so that's that. So we won't have to. We won't have to still read the minutes till we take the staff report. That's it. Correct. So now we're over to D, request for decision. Alex Dyer, planning manager.
My turn. Thank you for the discussion on the previous one. This memo that we have before you is an update on the development applications and the building permit application that we've received to date this year, including the current status of rezoning, development variances, and temporary use permit applications. And the status trackers for those applications are posted and updated on the ACRD website. So to date in 2024, the ACRD has received 72 development applications or provincial application referrals. The table that's included in the report highlights how this compares with the 3 previous years. And you can see that the first 9 months of this year really align with the pace, the higher than average pace we've seen since 2021. As a comparison, the 3-year average for these types of applications from 2021 to 2023 is 93 applications received per year, which aligns with the pace that we've seen in the first 3 quarters of this year. And the 3-year average on the previous years from 2018 to 2020 was 68 applications received. So development activity remains high. The number of building permits issued are also highlighted in that report. The building permits issued to date are 105, which is the highest number of building permits that we've seen in the month of September in a year since 2010 in the region. 105 permits this year compares with 83 permits issued within the same time frame in 2023. The other aspect I just want to highlight in this report is the efforts to improve efficiency and streamline application reviews. The department has experienced improved application review timelines in my experience this year, as we have improved our internal process a bit and staff have embraced those efforts. The more detailed rezoning applications, the commercial and industrial developments, and any application that receives significant public engagement, will continue to take more time in our experience and will require more resources to review. We'll also be launching the development approvals program project this year, actually later this month, to conduct a review of how the ACRD reviews our development applications and our building permit applications, and make recommendations on how to make a more effective and efficient process, and look at ways to expedite reviews where appropriate. We are finalizing a contract with a consultant on that right now, and they will be working with staff to conduct the review shortly and over the next 8 months or so. And I also just wanted to highlight the implementation of our City View Workspace software, which is an upgrade we've been working on for some time. This is the software that we use to manage our property database information and our development applications tracking. The new software went live this week, and it does include some built-in tools that we didn't have access to previously, which includes some prioritization activities, task assignments for staff, to-do lists for staff, automated report templates as well, which will help our consistency and just the speed at which we can produce these reports, and then improved integration with our ACRD web map as well. So we do anticipate that these tools will help us to optimize how we conduct our reviews as an entire organization, both within the planning department and then with our committees and the board, and really with a goal to get to the approval stage faster where we can. So I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Alex. Director Cote.
Thank you. Are we moving into the AI world with this process?
No, not yet. But so the new City View Workspace introduces some new tools that we still have to set up. So AI is not assisting us in that. But I do know that there has been some interest in that in the planning world, and I know that the City of Kelowna uses AI to intake their applications, for example. But that's all dependent on funding and the staff capacity to do it. So right now you have us. We are the AI, I guess, at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. I have Director Siga and then Director Boyko.
Thank you. I'd just like to say congratulations to the planning department. It's been great working with you, and I can see your juggling act better now. And I think your numbers are really good compared to other communities that I've had discussions with. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And now Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Question for planning staff: has the reduction in public hearings required sped up things, and what else is speeding you guys up besides that?
It has for sure. So I think we've held 6 public hearings this year, which is less than we have typically held since 2021. That allows us to really streamline the rezoning process much faster. One of the issues with developing the public hearing and advertising it, we do have to advertise in 2 consecutive editions of the newspaper, for example. So even if we set a public hearing day, if we have an application ready to go right now, we're not actually getting out to the public and looking at that until a month later. So that there's a number of smaller things in there that make it easier for us and actually cheaper for the applicants as well, as they're not paying for the full public hearing cost. The other things that have helped the process, we've changed how we internally review our development permits, for example. The development permits have been delegated to planning staff now, including the form and character permits, which were delegated last year. They're issued by the general manager of the department, and we have a more streamlined approach in how we get them before the manager for his signature. We've also looked at our internal referral process with the other departments, for example, where we have Beaver Creek Water and Banfield Water involved in our subdivision application. So we've helped that a little bit, and then building up the staff capacity and the staff abilities. I guess we've had some new staff over the last year or so, I guess, and they're we're really seeing that come to fruition now as everybody embraces kind of their new roles, and we see people thrive in their current positions. So we're looking forward to building upon that baseline and then moving into this development approvals project, which will have external eyes come onto our have a look at how we do things, have a look at best practices within the province, and look at ways that we can improve further. And that'll involve applications and the types of applications that get reviewed with advisory planning commissions, and how we we interact with our APCs, how we interact with the electoral area directors and the board as a whole, and look at ways where we can take the simpler applications off the longer time scale and fast track the ones that I think the community and the board want to see, and allow us to spend more time on the more complex applications that need the time.
Perfect. I think that's great to hear. I caution the use of AI for things like building inspectors and building inspections, because as a homeowner, I would be horrified if someone actually didn't come out and walk around and look around at things. But it's good to hear that things are improving. Appreciate it.
Thank you for that. I have Director Cote.
Thank you. Last part of the report is temporary use, short-term rentals. And I see that there's only 5 in Sprout Lake. Very a disappointing number to me, because I know that there is so many temporary use permit that should be in place. Short-term vacation rentals are one of the only ways that people can come and stay and vacation at Sprout Lake. They're recreational properties. So in the past, we have talked about having the bylaws officer looking into the short-term vacation rentals that are out there and advertising and not going for their permits. So can we get an update on that, please? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's something that we have talked about. We do plan on having a report to the board in November with an update on where we're at with bylaw enforcement in general, but also a discussion on the bylaw enforcement policy and how we track and enforce things like short-term rentals. Because in the past, the board direction had been to proactively reach out to operators of short-term rentals and get them to apply rather than responding to things on a complaint basis. We're also hoping to get some more information from the province as well on the data that they're collecting on the operators within the region. I know that they're like the principal residency requirements do not apply in our electoral areas, for example, but they are tracking data and tracking information about what's happening within our region. So we're hoping to get some more information on that. And if that includes, lists of operators that we can get a hold of, we'd be looking to do that. And then we also have additional tools that we could use to enforce those operators that aren't willing to make the application or not interested in legalizing it through the TUP process. We have a ticketing process that we can do through our bylaw notice enforcement bylaw, for example. So that would all be new direction we'd be looking for from the board, and we will have a report back in November to help that discussion.
Thank you. So it's all about safety and making sure that people are supported within the community, just so that people can be tracked and held accountable for what they're doing. They're making, a lot of money out there, and it's all about the enforcement to keep everybody in line and make sure that complaints aren't coming in steady. Personally, I haven't heard a whole lot of complaints this year, which is really great. So people are abiding by rules, I guess, and making sure that they're not creating an environment that's not sustainable for residents. And dogs, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Boyko.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion, and I'm going to redo the request for decision motion, but I'm going to make a motion after that as well. I make a motion that the Electoral Area Directors Committee receive the development and building permit applications update.
Okay, and I have a seconder by Director Ross. I have a few questions. I was waiting my turn, but that's good. So, have your complaints gone down? Now you put this on the website, you have this PDF form. People now realize that they can get information without phoning all the time. Has that helped out a lot?
It has actually. I spoke to a guy this week that was looking for some information on an application in his neighborhood. The feedback I got from him is there should be more information on the status tracker. So I think it's a good start. We did say that that we would be looking at improving that as we get more, more functionality with our web map and how that fits in with our city view software, for example. So, we'll keep working on that. I think there's still room to do that, but absolutely, we do speak to people all the time that open those up and look into what's happening in their neighborhood, especially as we see the development application signs have been popping up on properties that are being rezoned, for example.
Yeah. I was trying to show this off at the UBCM to some other people, and I couldn't find it on my phone, so I don't know. Probably just the operator, my eyes, but I got a few questions here regarding this. RF 24008. There might be an error there. Just so you know. Yeah, see the error?
I see that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we will follow up on that.
Okay, and the second one is RF 22008. It's a TPU, TUP. People, I've got contacted by people seeing what's going on there. Can you give me an update in the future of to what we're going to do there? What is being done there? Is that
Sure.
available?
So I think individual applications updates on the status of the individual applications, we're happy to provide that. It'll need a bit more background than the one I can give right now. But
Okay.
if any of the directors have a question about anything you see on the trackers or anything you hear from the public, encourage you to reach out to myself or Mike, and we'll find the information for you, and we're happy to have that shared back with the public as well.
If you do, thank you. Well, it's great. Say more interactive stuff, and the more you can get doing your job and not chasing your tail, it is great. So, I believe there is a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Is that correct? Any more questions before Director Cote?
Thank you. I'd just like to say it's nice to see all these green completed applications. Lots of that are in progress, lots awaiting information from the applicant. So it's not always staff or agencies that are holding things up. But yeah, it's really good to see all those green. Awaiting review, I guess that would be from technical agencies or.
So those are the ones that are typically the application fees have been paid, and they're waiting for us to pick up the file and get it ready for an advisory planning commission or the board.
Great, thank you. Good job. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it's looking good. People say, like, it's been 3 years where you look and they say, well, this is why. They can now detail it down to something that's not one-sided, like they can actually figure out what the cause is. So, any more questions from directors? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Okay, so call for a vote in the motion. All those in favor? Okay, and I won't call opposed because it's unanimous. Okay, that leaves you down there to reports. Is that correct? And there is no reports. Fred? I'm sorry, Fred, didn't see you. Dr. Boyd.
No problem. Thank you, Chair. So a couple months ago at this meeting, I made a motion that I would like to get the advisory planning committee meetings, have the minutes available for directors and the videos put on publicly as stored like everything else. And I'd like to make a motion to have that happen now. The motion will be all advisory planning committee minutes will be public, and as well as the videos, just like a public hearing or a board meeting or anything else. Thank you. The reason for this is when directors get to vote on things, sometimes they'd like to get more information from the advisory planning committees, and it's not available right now. And some directors like to dig in and watch the meetings if they have time, and I often do that, and you'll see me do that. But sometimes if they're not able to watch it live to get more information, it doesn't exist for them. And all they get is a thing from staff saying it's recommended or not. So this is to provide accountability, transparency in the process for all the people involved in the process to be able to give more information when votes take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Roth.
I definitely like to second that motion, and I completely agree. I noticed in the last meeting when we were talking about a committee meeting, I couldn't find anything online, and I really would have liked to have seen what the committee was saying about the application. So this is really important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have Ellen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, so we do email the APC meeting minutes back to the area director and the APC members of that meeting. So it would be easy for us to both email that out to all directors and also post those meeting minutes back on the ACRD website where we have the agendas. I think that's an easy change for us to do, and we're happy to do that. The videos of meetings, just so everybody, so the APC meetings are not live streamed, and that is that would be a significant change. I think that we would want the APC meetings to be aware that those videos may become public. I'm not saying that that's not something we should be doing or can't do. I mean, we do live stream public hearings, for example, and have those available in video. So it would just be something that I would like to discuss a bit further. It's with the APC members and the rest of the board before we start doing that.
You think that if we do that, would it be a cost to having somebody here live streaming it, or would it just be a matter of pushing a different button on the computer?
Yeah, it's a matter of a button on the computer. So no additional cost. If we start doing the hybrid meetings at halls every once in a while, a bit more of a challenge, but again, it's a setting on the Zoom meeting essentially.
Thank you for that. I have Director Boyko.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the last APC meeting we had with Beaufort, I posed this question to everyone that was there, and there was no problems from any of the APC members. They're already held to a code of conduct that was come in force, I think, a year and a half ago. So if we want to spend some time doing a quick email out to everybody saying, hey, this is going to happen, do you have any objections to it? And then deal with it at that point. I'm not sure what's the best way to move forward with that. But I think for transparency and accountability, we need to have everything online. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My question would be, yeah, we should ask the people at the APC if they want to be recorded all the time, because there may be some that may want to step back from that if that happens. So right now, the motion on the floor is to put this forward. Would Director Boyko, do you want to hold back until we get answer back from the APC committee members if they would like to feel comfortable about doing this?
I would say that I can wait till our next EA meeting if the staff would like to send out a quick 2-sentence email saying that this will now be recorded and put online. If you have any objections, please reply, and then we can go through that. And we'll probably have a meeting in a month or something like that, and we can deal with it then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you're going to withdraw your motion at this time until staff gets back to us with a 2-sentence email?
I would say if it needs more than 2 sentences, we're doing it wrong. But let's send that out. Send it to all APC meeting members, and send it to all the directors as well, so we all know what's going on. And then we can compile stuff, spend an hour doing it, and then bring it back and say everybody has no problem, or this person has a problem. And if people do have a problem with it, maybe we should change them out as APC members, because we're doing this in the public good for everyone else in their neighborhood. So I will withdraw the motion, provided that this is on the agenda for the next EA director meeting. Thank you.
Okay, we can probably do that. We have Director Roth.
Yes, I just wanted what Director Boyko said. How do we ensure it's going to be on the next meeting agenda? That's how I would like it handled, so that it is on the next meeting agenda. Thank you.
So there are, just a second, Director Roth, are you okay with withdrawing the motion too then? Or,
As long as it's on the next meeting agenda, yeah.
okay, you could make a motion to include this on the next Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting agenda.
Would it be me or Fred, or does it matter? Because I would like to do that.
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay, would you like to do it and I'll second it?
Okay, I see Fred's hand up. So Fred, you're willing to second that motion?
Yeah.
I will accept Susan has made the motion and I will second it for this to be on the next EA directors meeting as an agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Roth, your hand is still up. Do you have another question?
No, I'll lower it.
Okay. Any more questions? So there's a motion on the floor, a new motion, which am I going to get in time? She's still typing furiously on this motion. And then I'll give it to you. Doing our best as well. You ready? Okay, here we go.
Okay, so what I included was that the Advisory Planning Commission meeting procedures be added to the next Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting agenda.
Is that good enough, Director Roth? I can't hear you.
Maybe we should make it more specific to what Brett or Dr. Boyko said. What do you think, Director Boyko?
I believe we can make it more specific in saying that we will make the videos public as well as the meeting minutes.
Mhm.
Be just two specific items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have the motion that we're quickly rewording here so we know exactly what we're doing. And then I'll have Director Cote has a question.
I do. I'm just wondering if there's anything confidential in that the APC sees that this should be not, this should be privy to the directors, but maybe not to the public. I'm just wondering about that. Because we're talking about land and could be sales of land, you know, that are sort of, my mind's just out there thinking that there could be issues. So, thanks.
So advisory planning commission meetings are open to the public. The same rules around in camera. So if there was a disposition of land, for instance, that was the board was dealing with in camera and referred it to an advisory planning commission, they have the ability to go in camera. The same rules would apply there.
Is there any more questions from directors? So got a new motion here up. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so that the Advisory Planning Commission meeting procedures, including meeting minutes being made public and live streaming, be added to the next Electoral Area Directors Committee meeting agenda.
Director Roth, is that good? Okay, and Director Boyko, are you gonna second that? Yes? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion is carried. There we go. So now we're down to number 8, is that right? We don't have to receive the minutes, do we? No. Number 8, the reports, no reports. 9, late business, no late business. 10, question period. No, we have nobody from the public here. Anybody on Zoom or emails?
So we do have a few questions and comments that were received in Zoom. The first one is in regards to agenda item 7A, the interim housing needs report. And the question was from an anonymous attendee. Hello, are these dwellings to be built on reservations or on non-res land? Who would own the dwellings and where does the funding come from? Thank you.
Director Cote?
Thank you. So I have a question. If it's anonymous, don't people have to state their name and where they're from? Thank you.
I think they should. If we're gonna do transparency, then we should do transparency all the way through, including the anonymous one should be left anonymous. Is there another non-anonymous one there?
So we have two other questions or comments received from Charlene L. And this is in regards to agenda item 7C and the ACRD zoning bylaw. The first one is, would it not be possible that Cherry Creek be added with the Beaufort and Beaver Creek areas for the agricultural zoning plan? Staff time costs would be greatly reduced if we submit the proposal sooner than later, I suspect. And the second comment from Charlene L. is, this is more of a comment but can be turned to a question. Does Director Cote not know about the rooster collars that can be put on roosters to stop their crowing? Unknown if that is the proper term, but it does not harm the animal. It just does not allow the rooster to breathe in large amounts of air, so they cannot crow in this process. A family can have roosters close to neighbors without any noise disruption. Thank you, and thank you to Director Sparrow for adding Cherry Creek in with the two other electoral areas.
Well, thank you for that. Should we ask for both names next time? When we do that, because I know who that is, but yes, if we're going to transparency, then there should be a full name. Anything else? No? Then we're down to item 11. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Director Roth, seconded by Director Cote. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for a great meeting. Have a wonderful afternoon. Prepare for rain.
Thank you, everyone.